Welcome to the Independent Workforce, the podcast where we explore the now and the future of work through the lens of temporary employment, such as freelancers, contractors, fractional experts, you name it. Here, we speak with CEOs, recruiters, founders, and industry leaders about how they work with independent talent, the wins, the challenges, and the lessons learned. My name is Yurii. I'm growing the freelance market at FreelancerMap, an international platform that's been connecting top independent professionals with companies for over 20 years. And my guest is Jon Younger, a published author, educator, Forbes contributor, and HR tech thought leader whose work has shaped how global companies engage independent talent, and who's often called the Godfather of the freelance revolution. And now, as a founder of Voyager AI, he's helping business leaders adopt AI in a way that actually works. So, welcome, Jon.
Thank you, Yurii. What a wonderful opportunity to speak with you.
I know you for years already, and every conversation is a gem, is a true gem. And I know why they call you the Godfather of Freelance Revolution. And you have so much to share. And I really want to connect businesses with freelancers and independent talent and kind of like motivate them that there is more than just a full-time employment. There is so many things to explore. So, and I made this introduction, so I know a lot of things about you, but for those who meet you for the first time, share with me a little bit your background and what role do you play in the freelance market?
Sure. I guess for 45 years, which is quite a while, I've been in the business of talent in some way or another. For the first 30 of those years, I was an executive in HR. I ran an HR function in a very large bank. I consulted to a variety of organizations through a couple of consulting firms. I spent 10 years in Exxon. Finalizing the last job that I had at Exxon was managing a team of consultants around the world, helping Exxon to grow and develop. After about 30 years of doing that in the HR world, I guess I joined the freelance world full, and that's been the last 20. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've helped an awful lot of organizations to get a better perspective on the full measure of how that they can achieve their resource needs and goals, and trying to help organizations around the world understand that not all of the best talent in your organization needs to be full-time and permanent, that there are lots of opportunities for people to be working from outside in on a project basis that helps your organization, grows your organization, and helps to build the skills of your organization by working with very expert people. And now, I guess in the sixth startup that I've been part of, it's a long time, but in the sixth startup at Voyager AI, we're helping organizations to automate dumb work. Frankly, that's the reality of it. There's so much work that goes on in organizations that could be done better if there was technology available to replace repetitive routine tasks with automation, not to eliminate people, but to free people and empower people to do more, to do different, to grow. And I'm very excited about what we've been able to do there over the last year. So exciting time. I've had a very fortunate life, and I get to meet and hang out with guys like you, and that makes it even better.
Thank you very much, Jon. And 20 years of being a freelancer, and it's after 30 years on being in HR. What made you to make this jump to the dark side or bright side? I don't know. It depends. So what motivated to become a freelancer and start working with freelancers?
The best description. I'll give you two answers. For me personally, there's been a journey, and the journey is moving from how talent is supported, developed, identified, promoted internally in an organization, to the second way to think about talent, and that is external folks, freelancers, contractors, freelance interims, freelance fractionals, advisors, consultants. I mean, all of those categories of contingent staff. And now in the last couple of years, what we've seen is that AI is a third dimension, a third leg of the talent solution. And what it speaks to is not collaboration between humans, but collaboration between people and technology. It's very exciting. Having said that, the reason that I got into freelancing a long time ago, I don't know the answer to that, other than it seemed like there were more interesting things to do outside organizations than working full time in those organizations. Tim Sanders, do you know the name Tim Sanders? Tim is a guy that you ought to talk to. And Tim and Tony Buffum used to be two really good advisors at Upwork. And Tim is a very smart fellow. And he and I were chatting once. And he said, why would you want to work for one company when you could work for several? When you could learn from a variety of organizations rather than just continuing to work in just one? And I thought that was about as good an answer as any. I think that folks that enjoy freelancing, that are good at freelancing, are driven by the quality of the problems they're asked to solve. And in that way, it's almost an academic kind of a way of thinking about it. If you think about what makes great scientists, it's the quality of the problems that they identify and they want to work. It's the Hamming questions. And I think in freelancing, more and more of freelancers are driven by the range and variety of problems to solve, the opportunities they have to grow, rather than the security of working with only one company's problems. I guess that's as good a description as I can give you.
So it's more about like from the freelancer side. I totally understand that you are, but you're also working with companies and you are helping them to understand like what's the power behind. So I'm curious from your experience, from your perspective, what are the biggest concerns that companies raise before and while working with freelancers?
You know, we actually did some research on this, and it's really interesting. And it's been a few years, so please forgive me if I haven't remembered all of the stuff. But when you ask clients why they hire or why they don't hire individual freelancers, let's not talk about freelancing as a category, because every organization is in some way involved in freelancing. But when it comes down to making decisions about individual freelancers, the question is, can I trust you? And trust has two or three really specific elements. Can I trust you to have the skills and expertise to solve the problem? Can I trust you to be here through the project? Or are you going to leave me for something else part-time? Can I trust you to protect me? You're asking me to undertake a new kind of relationship. Are you going to screw me at some point in there, either by changing the prices or by not showing up or by doing the wrong work? I mean, those are the questions that people are asking when they think about hiring you or me. And for people that don't have a reputation in advance, it's pretty tough. So that's the challenge that I think organizations start with, Yurii, and that is, can I trust this individual? I think I can trust my internal person because I've gotten to know them. I know what they can do. I'm clear about the limitations of that person. And I think that I have agency over that person, right? Because they work for me. Those are the issues that people are thinking about when they're thinking about freelancers. And in a situation like we have today, where it's unclear what level of permanent resources are necessary, freelancing makes more sense than ever before. There's a lot of work that's going to be replaced by technology in one way or another because the jobs are crappy. I mean, they should be replaced because we need to free people and empower people to do better and more interesting things. And we can do that. But in order to do it, organizations have to be real mindful these days about what they need. Our job in freelancing is to help them to understand that we can provide them with what they want, not just with what they need.
So recently, COVID taught us that we can work remotely. Yes. And many people even took 2 full-time jobs Without
Yes,
both, people do not know. So it feels like they're becoming freelancers already by definition without being a freelancer. So kind of like being a freelancer while still being full-time employed. So I'm curious, like from your perspective, how has let's not talk just about freelance, but overall workforce market
sure.
evolved in the past few years?
Sure. The best way to describe it, it's a different article. So if I can just take a step back for 1 second, the article people might read in Forbes that talks about trust and why freelancers get selected versus not. There's an article in Forbes a couple of years ago that I wrote that I think people might find interesting. It's data-based. It talks about the specifics, et cetera. There's another article, also data-based, that talks about the challenge you're raising today. There are three kinds of folks working out there in one way or another. There are folks working contingently, there are folks working permanently, and then there are about 40% of people that have side gigs, as you just pointed out. Every one of the people that has a side gig is thinking about their career and their obligation differently than people who don't. If I have a side gig, I'm freelance light. That's a wonderful, wonderful word to think about. And by freelance light, what we mean is they expect the opportunities and benefits of being a freelancer while they're a permanent employee. They want more flexibility than they have as a permanent employee. They want more agency. They want more choice on what they work on and how they work on it and where they work on it and when they work on it. And if they're very, very good, their expectations are demands, and organizations will meet them. But what we're seeing more and more and more is that the whole issue of working from remote is running into two issues. One is, do I trust these guys that they're actually doing full-time work? And we're seeing enough examples where people start to worry. And the second is that organizations really aren't in full command of their resources right now. And so you're seeing this thing that they call bossism. But the bossism isn't because they're jerks. The bossism is because they're not entirely sure that their organization is under control and delivering against their vision. And so the thought is, well, if we have more people coming into the office, we'll have more control over that. I don't know that we will, but that's, I think, the motivation behind it. So we are returning to a pre-COVID, post-COVID reality, right? I don't know exactly how to call it, where there's fewer and fewer opportunities. There are fewer and fewer opportunities to work remotely and to work remotely full-time. And many more expectations around performance management than there have been before. So this is it's a bounce back from a time of greater flexibility, but it would be good to come back to the middle at some point soon. Do I believe that the freelance opportunity will grow? Yes. Do I believe that we need 1,000 freelance platforms providing that? No. One of the things that we're learning, Yurii, is I believe we're learning, is that freelancing was a business model until things changed, that now it's much more of a channel. And what you're seeing is freelance platforms are becoming more full stack in terms of what they're offering. So they're offering full-time people, that they're actually, sort of providing traditional recruiting opportunities, and then everything else. And it's getting a little confusing about what are we doing here as an industry, and how is that working out? Anyway, hope that was helpful.
I can even imagine at some point at the platform you will see like full-time employment, you will see freelancers, and you can even hire AI agents, and it will be like hire AI agent.
No,
Okay, okay.
already. Yeah.
So where do you see the biggest misalignments between company expectations and freelancers' realities?
I think that one is, if we start to think about this from the organization's point of view, for the next couple of years, organizations are going to be very confused about what resources they need and at what career stage they need them. And so if you sort of think about what AI is doing, it's kind of knocking out two kinds of opportunities. The one is knowledge management in a traditional sense, right? Because you can look it up. And the second is um, the automation of dumb work or crappy work or whatever you want to call it, bullshit jobs, whatever people call it out there. And so I think those are two things that are happening. Um, what does that mean for freelancers? Well, only my impression. So I mean, there's lots of truth around. I only have one perspective, and that is I think it's going to be tougher and tougher for the next few years for freelancers to figure out where they, it's so much is changing. We're in the middle of a sort of a hurricane, a tornado of technology. And I think it gets harder and harder for people to be generalists. And so more and more, I think what people need to consider if they want to go into freelancing, what are the issues coming up over the next 3 to 5 years, and where do they play? If you're a typical developer, you got a harder time in a world of low code and no code. If you are clear about the expertise, and the expertise is in need, and it's likely to be in need over the next couple 3 years, that's a good thing. But if you're not sure whether your expertise and the need of your clients is in alignment, you have some homework to do. And I think the challenge for many freelancers is the regularity of doing that homework again and again and again. Because I think it used to be, you're a developer, and it's sort of one way you think about yourself. And have you completely sort of reorganized your thinking about being a developer over the last 2 or 3 years, right? And are you going to have to do it again in a couple of years as some of the new technology comes into place? Of course you will. So I think the biggest challenge for individuals is not to see the future, but to see the emerging needs of their clients, and to be clear about who their clients are and what set of clients they're responding to. And if you think about an organization like Freelance Unlocked, which I know you're involved in, that's a very important source of insight on that stuff. When you get 500 or 600 or 700 people together, and they're all in one way or another sort of assigned to the tech field, wow. I mean, what a source of insight for knowing sort of what to do, where to go, where to focus over the next couple of years. And if you're not doing that, I think you're going to be left behind.
And it's like more of an individual side. And, every time that I talk to another freelancer, and I had so many conversations already, that it's all about building a freelance business. It's not just you are a developer or you are a marketer or whatever.
Right.
You are a business owner. You own business of development. You own business of marketing, of community, you name it. So still, as a business, you have to find a client. This episode of The Independent Workforce is brought to you by FreelancerMap, the home of freelancing. Whether you are looking to hire top freelance talent fast or a freelancer ready to find your next big project, FreelancerMap connects the right people with the right work. No endless job boards, no guesswork, just direct access to verified experts and opportunities across the globe. Visit freelancermap.com and start building your next success story today. Freelancers definitely should be out there. They should be selling. They should be understanding like companies' needs and all this stuff. So what should companies do? How should company act to unlock this superpower for themselves? Because it feels like they are not aware of that it exists. They are aware of full-time employment. They are aware of AI, but they have no idea what the hell to do with these independent people who they can't control. So how can companies start working with freelancers?
The first question that you got to ask is, what role does freelancing play in a company's workforce strategy? There are an awful lot of companies that don't have a very good or very clear workforce strategy, and HR is not great at creating workforce strategy. If you think about scaling, which is the essence of workforce strategy, it's hardly ever done by HR. It's done by operations people who know how to do it. So I think the starting point is to understand that most organizations don't have a way of thinking about the categories of work production that need to be in place. Until organizations do that, freelancers will always be will always be the marginal utility that you bring in when you don't have the others. And the problem is, of course, that it's no fun to be a marginal utility. So you need to. I'm going to come back to the individual, and then I'll go back to the organization. For the individual, it means finding the companies that get it, right, and getting to know them and working with them and building relationships with them and building relationships with the people that support them. I mean, that just makes lots of sense. For the for for the company, HR's got to get on board and has to think about what it means to have a workforce that has sort of three legs. First leg is internal talent. The second leg is external talent or contingent talent or talent when I need it. And the third one is AI or automation and AI agents providing that additional stuff. I think what we're going to find is that an awful lot of the AI stuff replaces some of the freelance stuff, as well as obviously full-time employees. Do I think that there'll ever be an organization, what do they say, a unicorn of one employee? Maybe. That's a lot of agents. But I think that the future of freelancing is going to depend on how well organizations think through their needs over not only the current period, but the future period. And most organizations are feeling pretty uncertain and pretty unstuck around that because of the unclarity of what AI can do for. So there's a lot of holding back. You'd think that would create more freelance opportunity, but I think what it does is it just creates more focus on the AI and less opportunity in general for people. Right.
Sometimes the more AI tools we have, the more tasks we create. And sometimes it
Boy,
feels
is
like
that true?
it
Boy,
will
is that
say,
true?
it will save time, it will help us all work easier. No, it doesn't. It helps like do something 10 times faster that you've been doing for like ever. And then you have 10 times more extra tasks. And I also feel like, when I talk to people who are working in different organizations, there are many things going on that I call showing off. So it's not like really making progress, but it's like showing off the progress.
Sure.
And it's something that I don't see in freelancers, because
Yeah.
freelancers, they are there to finish the project, to get things done, and just walk away to another client or just walk away to another project, because they are not interested in like spending time, because they are not being paid for the time, they are being paid for results. And you told that HR and companies are not get used to this, and they have to change their internal processes to really start working with freelancers and all other independent experts. And still, if companies don't adapt their processes for flexible talent, what risks do they face in terms of agility or maybe even competitiveness?
I think that the most fundamental risk that they face is that they don't have access to really talented people. So I mean that's kind of a problem. And I guess a second risk is that they're not on top of things. One of the reasons why you bring in freelancers, let's think about why you bring in freelancers for a minute. So the first reason you bring in freelancers, you want to fix something or start something or create something that you aren't able to do internally. Second reason is you're able to do it, but you've got other people doing other things, and so you bring in these guys to do this. Third thing is they have some unique expertise that will make whatever it is that they're doing faster, better, etc. But there's a fourth reason, which is this is the way in which we help your people who are full-time stay in touch with what's going on outside in the world. And we need to do that more and more and more because the speed of change is getting faster and faster. So one of the best reasons for bringing in a freelancer is that they'll teach you if you bring in the right freelancers, is that they'll teach you what's happening in other places. So I'll give you an example. Let me give you an example on the AI side, just because it's current, it's fun. One of our clients is a research organization, kind of like Consumer Reports, right? They do industrial research to help companies to make sure their products are what they need to be. So they look at the materials that you would use, like Tide or some other product to wash your clothes. Is it doing the right job? Is it doing the job effectively? Is it safe? All that stuff. When researchers research this stuff, they have long lists of criteria that they're looking at. They write lots of notes, right? Those notes go to somebody, and that person has to type those notes. First, they have to read those notes, which are part of the time is pretty hard. But once they read it, they have to enter it into a computer. And once they enter it into a computer, they're able to manipulate the data in one way or another. But think about all of the time that it takes for somebody who probably has a bachelor's or a master's degree, maybe a chemist or whatever. And their job is to type somebody's notes into the computer day in, day out. That is about as ugly a job as I can think of. And we're able, through our tech, to convert that writing to data immediately. You put it in the computer reads it, it puts it in the data set, and we're now on target. Well, why wouldn't you do that? It just makes sense. And it's one of many examples where the AI is able to eliminate a task that was not feeding a person's soul, was not teaching them how to do different things, was not helping them to grow as a professional. It was just that they were the cheapest resource around. And so they got to type it in. We can do better. AI can help us to do better. But what that means is that we're very much in a learning mode around what it is where we seek the technology and what it is where we seek the advice of a technologist like a freelancer. And that confusion creates uncertainty. That uncertainty creates a willingness to sort of hold back. And I think we're experiencing some of that right now. But I think we're going to see tremendous opportunities for freelancers in the future as organizations try to do the stuff that their people don't know how to do.
And I feel it's so much easier and faster to hire an expert who's on the market, who've been to different organizations, who has all this experience, who you can like basically get on board in a few weeks and to finish the training or project or anything you want in like a few months. In if you are talking about like full-time person, it will just take few months to hire this person, and then it will take a few more months to onboard this person. Yes. And then like as this like fairy advertisement like long time ago, like Villa Ribo and Villa Baggio, they're already partying and they're just starting washing their things after the food. And I'm curious, so you were talking about freelancers as this workforce that brings you clarity and like kind of like touch of like with the outer world of what's going on, and also from the other side it's lack of trust. So how can I
question it's a question.
How can I work with someone I can't control? I don't know, I have no idea how to do. So how to connect these two sides, how to deal with trust issue to bring all the benefits of freelancers inside of the organization?
Yeah. So what we know is that we're more likely to be successful if certain conditions are in place. One is the need is clear, right? The need is clear. Second is that I have information that tells me that you are somebody that I can work with. So the feedback from an influential third party becomes really important, and it's a lot different than go look at my website and feel good about it. So first thing is we need to make sure that the need is clear. Second is we need to make sure that you are reinforced by somebody that has the trust of this individual. And the third is that you have the technical insight and expertise that's needed. And the fourth is that your cost, your schedule, etc., is what I can afford or what I'm willing to pay. Those are the four very basic stuff. So if I'm a freelancer and let me give you an example. Last year, I was invited to do a consulting gig. I used to be a consultant a long time ago. I was asked to do a consulting gig for a company. There was a new CEO coming in, And he said, "Would you be willing to help me to sort of take take a read on what's happening in the organization, what issues, et cetera, et cetera?" And he said, "I just need it to be done within this time frame at this cost, et cetera." And my response was, "I really appreciate it, but I don't have the time to do this right now. It would require me to learn a lot of extra stuff. So thank you. Let me give you some other folks who I think you might be very happy with." They got the other folks, and he felt very good about it. And I built a relationship with him that allowed me to do subsequent work, in part because I said I can't do this work at the level that you require now. So I think it's so human. Yurii, at the end of the day, this is human to human. And if we can establish that we understand their need, if we can establish through our relationships that we are trusted, if we can demonstrate that we have the expertise that they need and that it comes at a cost and a schedule that's reasonable, you get the work. Now, how many folks in your experience go through that kind of a process?
It depends. I don't think that all that many.
Right. I don't think all that many do too. And that comes back to your original point, which is you're a business. You have to operate as a business. You need the background of a business. You need the reputation of a business. You need the communication of a business. And if you don't have that, you will not get the work that you want most, and you won't get enough of it.
Coming back to the third party question. So how do you think recruiters, staffing companies, and independent experts like yourself can make this collaboration process smoother?
Boy, I think that's a great question. And the starting point is SaaS is an interesting the notion of SaaS is you call, I respond, right? But we've got an outreach thing to be doing in business, and you can't just hope that people will call your platform. You can't hope that they'll convert your platform into a place where they think they can find great folks. So the examples that I would give would be, let's use Gigged AI as an example. Rich Wilson and Craig Short. I don't know anybody that works harder than they do to make sure. And these guys run a Scottish I think it's Glasgow-based platform. They work harder than anybody else to let everybody know what they're doing, let everybody know what their folks are capable of doing. They put a ton of effort into articulating why they are a source of excellent talent. If everybody did what they did, an awful lot of people would be more successful. So I think part of it is you've got to reach out. You've got to articulate what you bring. You've got to articulate what expertise you're able to provide. And you've got to create a process of reviewing talent in your platform that's easy and comfortable and informed and articulate. Right now, if I use the example of, let's use the example of Catalant, if I may. So Catalant is a very large consulting platform, as you know, and they did something really interesting recently. They transformed their way of speaking to their customers so that instead of giving their customers access to 115,000 freelance consultants in various areas, what they created were capability sets. So there's a capability set called transformation. There's a capability set called strategic analysis. There's a category set called AI, which helps their clients to understand what are the areas where they're really very good. They took 115,000 freelancers and identified 22, I think it was 22 categories where they really could compete with a McKinsey or with a BCG or with a Bain or any of the other platforms. And I think that's been helpful to them. So again, the quality of your communication to your public, what you're good at, what you're not good at, where you're really focused, that's very important as well. So there's a communication piece, there's a structure piece, there's a way of presenting piece. And then for individuals, When you're given the opportunity to talk about what it is that you're good at and what it is that you're best at doing, how clear is what you have to say? How specific is what you have to say? And how concrete is what you have to say? So all of these are just the little things that businesses need to do and individuals that run those businesses need to do to stay up to date.
John, I have so many questions and I really wish to have the sky as a limit, but time is a limit. So the final question, what
Sure.
advice would you give to companies just starting to use freelancers?
Talk to them. I know that sounds like a funny thing to say. I'll give you a story that's not exactly pertinent, but it's pretty close. Uh, I was invited to work with a large bank, one of the top five banks, not a bank that I had been the HR leader of, but a bank separate from that. And they wanted to know how to work with freelancers. They wanted to know how to treat freelancers as customers. And my response was, well, the first thing you ought to do is figure out how many of your 11 million clients are in fact freelancers. 11%. So of 11 million customers, over a million customers in this bank were
Hmm.
freelancers themselves. And what the bank needed to do, of course, was to talk with them. And so our suggestion to them was, why don't you pick 50 freelancers and change them every couple of years and make them an advisory board for you and pay them a couple of $100s to give you advice on how to work with freelancers and what services to provide to freelancers, etc. That was very helpful for them. And it wasn't the fanciest advice in the world, but it was the starting point for a conversation that helped them to get clear about how to set it up. Let me give you the flip side, and that is each of the large consultancies and audit firms, accounting firms, has created one or another kind of these things, right? I mean, Deloitte and PwC, et cetera. And I'll mention one of them, and that is that after spending millions and millions and millions and millions to build a platform for freelancers wanting to work at this particular place, they took a look, and what they found was that it wasn't very successful because each of the partners in this accountancy had their own group of freelancers that they were working with. And so having a kind of a company general platform wasn't very helpful because everybody was building their own sort of micro platform. Well, there's a message there, and that is they were bringing in people they could trust, not people that just sort of showed up on the platform. And they were starting with trust. That's going to be the number one thing that an organization can do before it starts to deal with freelancing at scale, which is to find ways and to find platforms and to find individuals that you believe can be trusted, can support you, understands your culture, works well with your leaders. I mean, all of those basics. I think that's kind of the answer. We've got to process over a period of years to turn something that's pretty innovative, but now into something that feels normal. And I think what you and I would agree on is that our goal is to make freelancing feel normal, not exceptional or not different or weird. It's just another of the tools that we use in organizations to make stuff happen.
No, I really like your approach of finding a person who you are comfortable working with, like some freelancer, and then kind of like getting them onto this advisory board and kind of like giving all the responsibility of working with freelancers on their shoulders in a way that they understand how it works. And I feel like they will definitely better understand if another freelancer is the right fit for your company, for your organization. And you can kind of like ask them, are you sure? Are you sure it's a good fit? And I feel like if you have like, I don't know, 5, 10 people on this advisory board, yeah, you already have a department of freelance in your organization.
I would add one other thing, and that is that I'm really impressed at the stuff that Matt Matola is doing with Tony Buffum and Paul Polo. First of all, they're wonderful guys, but second, I think that they're doing the best job of figuring out how to create a utility that will help client companies, enterprise companies know which freelancers are a good fit for them, And I would say, when you have an opportunity to bring those guys onto the show, I think that they'll be very interesting for your listeners. I think that they're doing some really good stuff. Excuse me, Matt and Paul and Tony and others that they're working with, to really help organizations know how to make intelligent selections.
There will be many, many things to come. And yeah, John, thank you so much for,
Pleasure.
first of all, being in this industry for so many decades and kind of like
Thank you.
growing it to even before it was a mainstream, and keep going, keep building, keep creating, and
Thank you.
keep building startups and sharing your experience with outer world. And I hope that at some point, who knows, maybe we'll see this great collaboration of full-time freelance and AI working all
I think
together
it's happening. I'm
for the
excited
best.
about it. I'm excited about it.
And yeah, once again, thank you so much.
Thanks, Yurii. Great to talk always.
And for listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of The Independent Workforce. I hope you've taken one step closer to working smarter with freelance talent. If you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe to learn even more and share it with your colleague. And remember, the future of work is now.